you know, the disadvantage to growing things in pots is that roots go in circles. And then 20 years from now, these circling roots, let's say 20 years from now, this trunk will be this big. And the root that started growing here in that circle is going to be wrapped around that trunk 20 years from now. And then it's going to choke off that tree. It's literally going to just squeeze the cambium layer here, you know. And so as everything starts to swell and grow and get tight, and so the bigger the tree you buy, the worse it is in terms of roots. And you might want to buy a, let's say a $500 100-gallon oak to plant it because it's big. Well, basically you should cut all the roots off of it and make it start all over. And then you're down back, you should have just bought a $12 tree to start off with. And some of the universities are saying that on all these potted trees, you should shake all this soil off of it so that you can see every root and cut the ones off that are circling. This tree actually is not that root bound at all, and I think it's okay. We don't need to remove all this soil.
So you're just kind of straightening them out now?
Yeah, I've just torn up, and sometimes it might even take a saw to cut them if they're so big, or you would be using your pruners to actually cut off roots right wherever they were big and circling, and make them. Then they would respond by growing out correctly.
So this is, you say this is not root bound or much root bound because you can easily pull them.
Some of them are so hard, you know, tight in there, nothing but a mass of roots, and it should, most of it should be cut off and thrown away.
Wow. Okay.
So this, if I put this in the hole now I'm way too deep since I ended up taking off all that soil, and so we're going to backfill that.
And it looks like from the pot soil, you've actually taken off about at least 3 inches.
Yeah.
Wow.
Off the top, you mean?
Yeah, off the top.
Well, no, it was only an inch and a half or 2, maybe.
Okay. So dark.
Jody, should you backfill with compost?
No. And so, I'm using my shovel here as a gauge, a level kind of. It's like I still need to bring it up a little bit to be level with the soil. So again, I think maybe 20 years ago, the universities came out with research saying that if you amend this small area right here, you know, 3 years from now, these roots are probably going to be over here. And 5 years from now, they're going to be over there. And so why would you mess around with the soil right here? What good is that going to do? Nothing. And they say, and you don't want to encourage these roots to stay here feeding on this good stuff. You want to make them say, I want to go look for some better food somewhere else, and I'm going to get big, so I'll hold myself up.
I agree.
That makes sense.
Same philosophy.
So, you know,
I planted my trees last year.
people have been adding, you know, my whole life I always added compost or whatever, rotten leaves to my holes my whole life. And it's, so you're not going to hurt anything really, but you're also not going to help anything. And the most important thing they say is that if this soil was much, let's say clay, this happens to be very nice and sandy. If it was hard soil, the most important thing is just to have a pick or a mattock to literally just break it up so it's finer texture, so the roots could get started and get going out. And what I used to do too was take my pick. If I had bad soil, I would actually take a pick and just drive holes in with a pick. Don't even move the soil, but just punch some holes in that wall if it's real clay. So I think that's an okay depth, and you know, you might even end up, if you have some root that wants to go way over there, you might do that.
Get it started.
Yep. But otherwise, these are so fine, and I think they'll be okay. And you want to just put in 2 or 3 inches of soil and then pack it as you go. So hophorn beam, in this park somewhere, I saw one the other day when I came by. There's a blue beech here too, and they look very similar But the blue beech that's here is a nice mature tree. It'll have real smooth gray bark that looks like mussels. And this one though, they almost have identical leaves, but this one will have a chocolatey brown bark. There's a little tiny fine textured flakes on it. But they're both lowland type trees, and just love the shade and make little seeds that birds would eat.
Yeah, these are really common in the Greenway, especially along West Indian Head. If you walk along the West Indian, the Greenway side, you'll see them in the fall with their beautiful seeds.
Yeah, their seeds look like, if you've ever been out in the Midwest where they grow hops for beer, or wherever they do that, Washington State, I'm not sure where that is.
Yeah, Washington State.
But hops that they grow for beer, the little seed pods on this tree look like hops. That's why it's called hop.
Scaly.
Hornbeam, and the blue beech, this thing is just called hornbeam. And so this is the hop hornbeam, and they're also both called ironwood, I believe, because they have wood hard as a rock. And so if you have enough soil, it's always good to build a little reservoir so that when you water it, the water won't just all run away. I think as small as this tree is, I would probably remove this stake. I don't think it needs a stake. I think when you have the stakes on, you know, the reason why you might want to remove it is that a tree to respond, it needs to respond to motion before it's going to say, I need to grow a stronger trunk. If it's not feeling motion and stress from wind, it'll say, oh, I'm happy just being with a little skinny trunk. I don't need to get stronger. So you want it to know that it's being stressed by wind, and it'll respond by making more wood. But I don't think it needs that to hold it up.
I keep wanting to say, ta-da!
Maybe if any of you guys think about it this spring and summer, you can come bring a gallon or two of water.
Sure thing.
Just go over to the stream, I guess. Get a little water. Use that.
And there's probably no real reason to prune this tree at all, but since this might have a rough life in terms of lack of water, we'll reduce its transpiration here by a little bit of pruning. But I don't think these limbs will matter a whole lot if they're cut off.
How often should it be watered, say if there's no rain in the month?
Right now, while it has no leaves, maybe only every couple of weeks. But
and how much?
You would be nice if you could fill this whole little reservoir basin.
Got about 3 gallons, you think?
Yeah, and then once the heat gets here next summer, I mean, it would love it at least twice a week.
But if we overwater it, everybody comes down.
Yeah, you know, we have to leave each other notes. I want it.
Water gonna dig.
And so the way you want to mulch it, and this will help keep soil temperatures down and help conserve moisture. And so I would say it'd be nice to have an area that big, and it might keep the city weed eaters away.
Yeah.
But what you don't want to do is what the city has done to a lot of these trees, blowing these leaves. They're trying to make this place look nice and neat. They don't want people walking on leaves. So they've piled them all like this, all up against a tree. And the city forester will tell you that that's going to cause fungal rot in here, maybe on the trunk. And so when you mulch, you basically want it to be like that. And not a bunch of leaves all up against the trunk. And so all these trees that have been done this way need to be uncovered. These leaves need to be spread out everywhere. And the reason why you want leaves under these trees, Doug Tallamy, who's written the 3 books now on native plants, he talks about underneath these oak trees especially, there are species of moths and maybe a butterfly or two, and their caterpillars eat nothing but dead leaves on the ground. You know, we think of caterpillars as eating nice little green leaves. There are weird species that eat dead leaves on the ground, and so you need those for them. And then all the caterpillars that are up here in the tree leaves eating them, when they are ready to go into a pupa, if they're done with their caterpillar stage, they go into their pupa, which is a little cocoon type thing, a chrysalis. They just fall from the trees, and if they land here, they're probably dead. Good as dead, it's right there. And if they land here, they're gonna make it. And so all these trees, all the way out to the drip line, the whole forest floor should be covered with leaves because these caterpillars are dropping out of these trees. And you know, we can't even conceive of the caterpillars up there. We never even have any idea they're there. There's thousands of species here, probably 10,000 species in our country of moths.
Eating all our birds.
Yeah, feeding our birds. That's what those moths are nothing but high protein food for baby birds. That's their whole purpose. And a few survive to make a moth.
To make more baby birds. Is there any way we could ask them not to clean up so much?
Well, yeah, you just call the city and complain.